G'day there, my name is Hannah, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about what Anakin was trying to teach Ahsoka from those scenes in Ahsoka Episode 5. Diving straight into things, simply put, this is a choice of life and death, metaphorically and physically. And this is a line that literally Anakin says. This whole concept of Ahsoka becoming a better warrior has been prefaced by Dave Filoni so well in Tales of the Jedi. There was this whole episode of Anakin training Ahsoka and very much having this note of making her as best as she can be. This feels like a literal continuation of just that episode of Tales of the Jedi. Let's get to the flashbacks though. So the first one, I think the lesson here is to open her understanding. She's thrusted into this flashback. She's young, but she's kind of aware in her Force state that she's in this time and she can't really understand why she's there. And she's saying, well, why am I here? I don't understand why I'm here. They have a little bit of back and forth. It's an intense battle scene. And Anakin says that great line of, that's the point. See, she was thinking too literally. She was focusing on the battle. Why was she taken back to this point of time? But really, she needs to start opening her mind of not just the battle, but what is happening all around her. Anakin is trying to urge her to open up her understanding of the Force. This phases into the next kind of flashback, kind of loosely, where I think he's trying to teach her to face death and adversity, which I love because this is a reoccurring issue for Ahsoka. This isn't the first time she's been afraid to die or afraid of death. All throughout the Clone Wars, as Clone Wars fans know, this concept is brought up in a number of episodes where Ahsoka has close friends, or it's particularly her clone troopers, die, and it affects her so deeply. Anakin back then, and also in this instance, is very firm on saying, this is a part of war. This is a part of what we're in. But I think Ahsoka is brought back to this point to just highlight to herself again that maybe she really isn't over that. She really hasn't become super aware and accepting of the point of death, and death is going to happen. She hasn't faced that fully yet. So she has to, so Anakin brings her back to this point of time of being sad of her clones and her brothers dying and how that still affects her, and she needs to face that. Again, this is kind of merging to a kind of a third point of this lesson of, and Anakin says this, he's trying to teach her to lead and survive. All these phases of hesitancy, opening up understanding and facing death and loss, this is all to make her a better leader and survivalist. I really think in the current timeline of things, of Sabine and Thrawn and this storyline that's happening out here, I think Ahsoka is probably maybe not mentally strong enough to fully face it and complete it and actually win that battle yet, or that war that could happen. This is why Anakin has brought her to learn all these things. He is trying to make her mentally stronger. He says it all throughout these flashbacks, and this is a very common thing with Anakin and Ahsoka, that he's trying to turn her into a warrior. Especially with these scenes in the Siege of Mandalore, he kind of says, I don't remember this battle, and she has that quip, and we get to a little insight of the wonderfully portrayed dynamic that they share of this kind of little snippy, pun intended, and sassy kind of back and forth of, she says, well, you weren't in this one. She's getting a little, as she was that little bit older, she was getting more understanding of becoming more of a warrior, and she was quite skilled at that point. But this doesn't mean she knows everything just quite yet, because I think this kind of climax as they start to battle, and Anakin is, we see Anakin as Sith Anakin, as turned Anakin, and we come back into the world between worlds. This final duel and moment is a climax because she is faced with her emotions. She's faced with fears of not being good enough, not being strong enough, fears of death. She's faced with all that right in her face. And she probably is faced with also the fact of who Anakin became and regretting that and fearing that, because in the kind of the flashback, he says, is that what this is about? And that's what kind of triggers everything. So I think she's faced with everything at once and she becomes imbalanced. We have that incredible scene where her eyes flash that little bit of yellow of those Sith eyes. Such a beautifully done scene. And in that moment is so key. This is the climax of this whole point of this episode. In that moment, she has a decision. The decision is life or death, metaphorically and literally. She chooses life. And how she chooses that is in that moment where she could probably strike down Anakin, let out this anger, this hesitancy, this fear that's inside her. She could let that out and strike down Anakin. But she chooses to throw that saber away, symbolizing that she's choosing life. And again, coming back to my point I made at the start of this is the world between worlds. This is not like, oh, Anakin's just permanently dark now. No, this is just the Force presenting itself in different ways. So that's why he's so easily, like, he closes his eyes and he comes back to light side Anakin. He can go in and out because this is just the Force showing itself in what a person needs to understand. But that's what loosely I think this lesson is all about. Ahsoka needs to face her fears more, show herself that adversity is still all around her, and, you know, kind of face her past a little bit as well with what happened to Anakin. But she needs to open that understanding of to become the best warrior, to become the warrior that she needs to be in the plot line that I think we'll come back to in this show of Thrawn and Sabine, and who she needs to be for Sabine. To be this best warrior, she has to face her fears. And choosing life every time means making the best decision with what you have, obviously, but also being balanced, not leaping on your emotions when they present itself, where she had the option to do that and she didn't. So let me know in the comments if that made any sense, or if you've got any questions, if you have more thoughts to add, maybe you've got